Talktainment Radio, worldwide sound. Talktainmentradio.com. We give you a reason to come. The world's greatest radio. We give you a reason to stay. Radio, the way it should be heard. You got the power.
The views and opinions expressed are those of the host and guest and not necessarily those of TalkTainmentRadio.com, the management, the staff, or K&E World Network, LLC.
Live call-in talk show. Dial 1-877-932-9766 and join the conversation here on TalkTainmentRadio.com.
This is the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio. Radio, the way it should be heard. And now, Mr. Neely Fuller.
If you do not understand white supremacy, which is racism, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. Only confuse you. Only confuse you.
Good morning and welcome to TalkTainmentRadio.com. We go where you go on the world's greatest radio. And you are now in touch with the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby, and this is radio the way it should be heard. Listen, we're doing something a little bit different today. If you would like to see me live, go to Facebook.com/Talktainment. If your TV is not broken or your monitor is not broken, you can see the whole show as we are producing it live. So go to Facebook.com/Talktainment, and you will get to see me. Trust me, they surprise me too. If you'd like to call in to the show, you can do so by calling 1-877-932-9766, or you can Gmail me at the numero 7, Mr. Bobby @gmail.com. And listen, I will try to read it off of my phone, so bear with me today because we are experiencing or doing something different today. On the line, live from Washington, D.C., we have Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. And Mr. Fuller, good morning, and how are you?
Good morning. I'm still learning. Well, in the first place, I always say white supremacy is racism. There's no other form of racism, logically speaking, other than the system of white supremacy. If you have white supremacy, you can't have any other form of racism. Other people might aspire to be racist, but if they are people of color, that means they're subject to a system that's already in place. Mm-hmm. So therefore, they can't be racist. They can only react to the racism that's already there. Someone invented a thing called racism, and it turned out to be in the form of something called white supremacy. You can't have two supremes in the same space at the same time. So sometimes people use the phrase racism and white supremacy. Racism is white supremacy.
Okay.
It's those white people who have decided to dominate and mistreat people based on color are the only people who qualify to be racist. And so since they base that on being white and other people being classified by them as non-white, even though a lot of black people who are classified as black, look like they're white people, but the white supremacists determine who is white and who is non-white. And they'll do this each and every day anywhere on the planet, minute by minute, if necessary. They might say that someone is white in the morning, and then they declare that the same person who was white this morning is non-white this afternoon. Or they'll use expressions like a white person can be part Indian. Mm-hmm. Well, Indians are considered to be, by them, red people. So how can you be white and red at the same time?
Yes.
How can you be white and non-white at the same time? That's impossible. You're either one or the other. You're either white or you're not. And they'll say semi-white or something like that. No such thing as semi-white. You're either white or you're not. But see, they do this for convenience. Why? Because they have the power to do so. And they'll just say anything, any kind of way, as long as at the beginning of the day and at the end of the day, they have the absolute power over people who they classify as being non-white.
Yes.
And they have the power to do anything that they want to do with these people in any one or more of 9 areas of activity: economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. And that just about covers everything that people are doing from one minute to the next.
Yes, sir.
Everywhere on the planet.
Everywhere on the planet. The details on that one, too. But why are we... All right.
Oh, yes. That term is just the system, just consists of those 2 words. You use this term to apply to the sum total of all speech and all action by white supremacists that directly or indirectly dominate non-white people in any one or more areas of activity, including economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war, counter-war.
Yes, sir.
But you use this term, the term that I just mentioned, the system. Sometimes people use the term the system without explaining what system they're talking about.
Exactly.
Right. People say, well, you know how the system works. I mean, man, I lost my job today, but if you're black, you know what that means because that's how the system works. And sometimes people will say the American system or the capitalist system or something like that. No, it's just one system when it comes to color. And that system is the system of white supremacy / racism. That's the system. It's just one system, not a communist system or socialist system. That's not the way to express it. It might be a combination of all of these things, depending on what kind of context or what kind of definition you want to use. But when you say the system, you certainly don't say the American system is mistreating black people. That's a contradiction.
Yes, sir.
It's the system of white supremacy / racism. That's the system.
Yes, sir. Okay, so that's why we want to be specific when we are speaking about the system of racism, white supremacy. Let's take a phone call. Okay, are we set up? We ready? Okay, caller, go ahead. You are now on with Mr. Fuller. What is your question for Mr. Fuller?
Yes. Can I be heard?
Yes, go ahead.
Yes. My question is, I wanted to ask Mr. Fuller if he was aware of the President Donald Trump that he had removed the KKK off the national terrorist list, and I wanted to ask Mr. Fuller what were his thoughts about that, or did he expect it, or just wanted to move white supremacy? Okay,
Mr. Fuller.
Someone else is talking while the person was talking, I didn't get.
He said, were you aware that Donald Trump had removed the KKK off of the terror list, sir?
Yes, off the national terrorist list.
Off of the national.
I hear 2 voices here.
Okay. You still hear 2 voices, Mr. Fuller?
No, now I hear you clearly.
Okay, yeah. The caller said that were you aware, and he wants your thoughts on this, that Donald Trump has removed the KKK off of the national terrorist list. And the caller wanted to know your thoughts on that.
Has removed the KKK off of what?
The national terror list.
Oh, the national terror list.
Yes, sir.
Oh, well, maybe he had his reasons for doing so. So he would be the one to explain why he did that if they are no longer on a terrorist list. Maybe, what does that mean? And what are the details? I would have to be familiar with that. I'm not familiar with that having been done. I didn't even know that the KKK, sometimes called the Ku Klux Klan, was on a terrorist list.
Okay.
I really don't know who is on the terrorist list.
I see.
Or how you get on the terrorist list, or how you get off of the terrorist list. The master terrorist of the entire planet is any individual white person who believes in and practices racism. So that would be millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of people, presumably. I don't know the exact numbers of white people who believe in mistreating people based on color, but I'm quite sure that it goes beyond anything that's called a KKK. I mean, when you have a system of government worldwide that consists of millions of people, what kind of list do you make up?
Right.
But in answer directly to the question, Mr. Trump can explain why they were on the list in the first place, if they were, and why they were removed, and what are the details of that. I mean, whenever people are doing something, the people who are doing it should explain what is being done. That's the logical process.
That's the compensatory response.
That's the compensatory response.
Okay.
Whomever's doing something,
Thank you.
you have to address your questions actually to the person who is doing it.
Okay.
I wasn't familiar with it,
Yeah.
so therefore I don't have the type of information that would permit me to intelligently give a response.
Okay. I wasn't aware either, but thank you, caller, for calling in and then making us aware of it. Yeah, that's a very good question. Okay, thank you so much. All right, TalkTainmentRadio.com is a 24/7 no-charge worldwide broadcasting facility with hosts delivering on various topics such as news and lifestyle, sports, law, health, wellness, religion, and politics. Now, here are several that I'd like to share with you. One is called Your Time, another one is called At the Table, and then the third one is Urban Flow. Now, all these shows are exclusive to TalkTainmentRadio.com, and all you have to do is go to TalkTainmentRadio.com, click on programs for the scheduled times. All that from TalkTainmentRadio.com. That's radio the way it should be heard. This is Mr. Bobby, the co-host on the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. Today, we are still on politics. I believe this is the 7th edition, and in particular, we're speaking specifically about in the system of racism and white supremacy. And if you have any questions concerning that, you can call in by calling 1-877-932-9766, or you can Gmail me at the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, B-O-B-B-Y, at gmail.com. I can't say that I will get to those emails, the ones that you write today, but I'll do my best to do that. And speaking about that, we are doing a live podcast, I believe it is, and all you have to do is go to Facebook.com/Talktainment, and I'm supposed to be on there, so this is live, so you know what happens when you go live with some things, but that's the way it is. Yeah, just go to Facebook.com/Talktainment, and we're supposed to be on there. Again, if you have any calls, call in, and we'll do that. Okay, let's go to the phone lines. Are we ready? I see it going on here. Okay. All righty. All right, caller, are you there? Okay. All righty. Okay. While we're waiting for the call to come through, moving right along, Mr. Fuller, you wrote during this thing, system, on page, I believe it's page 386. Let me turn to that. Yes. Page 386, again, we're talking about the system. And then you spoke about sexual politics. And that's on page 360. So let's go to 360 of the Word Guide. Very important, in which we are going to have Mr. Fuller speak about the Word Guide. But this is why you get the Word Guide, because Mr. Fuller has explained that. Mr. Fuller, on page 360, you have the term sexual politics. Could you explain that, read that and explain that to us?
Sexual politics is a term that is apply to any deliberate relationship between male and female persons based primarily on consideration of sexual differences, and which does or does not include sexual intercourse and or sexual play. It's just a way of explaining, a given focus, rather, you might say,
yes,
to a word or term that may appear from time to time. Sometimes people use the term. I heard the term being used years ago, sexual politics. I didn't have any idea what that meant. So I tried to find out, and I found out that in a practical way that different people meant different things. So the compensatory code calls for me to kind of nail definitions down.
Yes.
In a way that it serves to do what? Get clarity and focus mainly in something that has to do with race and or racism. And since the eighth area of activity is sex, and the races do dominate the sexual activities of people of color, so I decided, well, I better give that some type of focus definition. So I'll repeat it again. Sexual politics, the compensatory definition is, it applies to any deliberate relationship between male and female persons. Specify that right off the bat.
Based primarily?
Male and female.
Yes.
Right. Based primarily on consideration of sexual differences, which does or does not include sexual intercourse and or sexual play. Meaning, anytime a male is interacting with a female, any kind of way, you're just saying good morning. That's sexual politics. Because what is it? What is sex? Sex is male and female, according to the compensatory code. That's the only type of sex that there is. Sex is with male involving a male with a female person. And what is politics? Politics is anything that has to do with people. So if a female person is interacting just by saying good morning with a male person, a female person is interacting with that male person by saying good morning, Mr. Gordon, that's sexual politics. Why? Because it's male and female interacting, and it's political. That's all. Real simple.
Okay. What about somebody who is gay or lesbian? How would that affect them?
Well, someone else would have to explain that. Since the code position is, when you say sex, you mean male with female.
Okay.
Everything else is just interaction between people, one person to another. I don't know what you could call that. Somebody else would have to give a name to that, because you have in the new categories, according to the white supremacists, where people of color are concerned, you have an unlimited number, it seems to be, of categories and subcategories and alternate categories of sexuality, whereas the code position is male with female is sex. Anything else is some type of interaction between people that comes under a different type of name.
Yes. Okay, now, since you went there when you used the term sexual play, what do you mean? What is sexual play, according to the compensatory concept?
Well, sexual play basically is, that's why I always have it in quotes, it can mean almost anything between male and female that has to do with a prelude to some type of sexual activity that's called sexual intercourse, or something that is more or less is play that's leading up to something more serious than the play. I mean, just making remarks that has to do with sex, either directly or indirectly, that has to do with sexual intercourse, and may or may not include things like kissing, fondling, they call it, or something like that. That's sexual play.
Okay. Now, I know under sexual play in the compensatory counter-racist codified word guide, which I'm showing up on the screen now. This is where I'm reading from. You mentioned this is on page 360. you said number 2, you mentioned any contact between male and female that includes deliberate, playful, and or sexually stimulating touching of any part of the body of one by the other, particularly touching of the vagina, penis, buttocks, mouth, breast, hair, etc. But then you had mentioned something about speaking or just saying hi. Now, I'm a little confused on that, so could you help me out on that, or what do you mean by that?
You mean the number 1 under sexual play, male and female speaking?
Number 1 and 2, yeah, under sexual play on page 360 of the Compensatory Counter-Racist Codified Word Guide.
Male and female speaking to, toward, or acting toward, and are touching one another in such a manner as to promote thoughts of sexual intercourse.
Okay.
I think that's pretty direct. In other words, you're doing something that the person, the female person with the male person, they begin to understand that what this prelude, this activity, most likely is a prelude. In other words, you're leading up to.
Yes, sir.
Acts of sexual intercourse.
Okay.
Which, people make remarks, on the job or, in a club or wherever, or, wherever people happen to be, you can pretty well tell when that's in play, sexual play. It's leading up to acts of sexual intercourse, either directly or indirectly, between male and female, according to the Compensatory Counter-Racist Code.
Yes, sir.
And that's more specific than what sexuality is in 2017 now, according to some sources. But according to counter-racist logic, we deal with male and female within the realm of anything dealing with what we call sexual intercourse. Any other type of sexuality, is highly questionable according to the definition, and the people who expressing other forms of sexuality can express what those definitions are.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Now.
But within the counter-racist code, it's between male and female.
Okay. Now, let's go to the Gmails. I have here from Dr. McKinley. He says, now my question, or maybe a comment to Mr. Fuller is, Mr. Fuller, he wanted you to check out the movie Purge, Parts 1, 2, and 3, Episode 3, the election year. This series shows how killing in this society is done for sport. The Purge is an annual event where citizens can go on massive killing sprees, wearing masks from sundown to sunup to the next morning. One other thing, Mr. Fuller, I heard you talk about how they want to put every black man in a dress in movies. Well, there's a new show called by Oprah Winfrey Network called Queen Sugar, and I see 2 negative images. One, the star African-American female goes from sleeping with African-American women to the next thing she's sleeping with white males. But the worst is this 5-year-old African-American child raised by an African-American parent whose favorite toy is a white female Barbie doll. And so how much influence and say do you think the white supremacist has in deciding that this is the image is in the show when the writer and director, I think, and the producer are African Americans or non-white? I look forward to hearing your answer, Mr. Fuller.
Well, the white supremacists, I think the best way to answer that is the white supremacists have decided that one of the major things that they're going to do to keep the system of white supremacy going is to cause mass confusion in anything that remotely resembles sexuality among all of the non-white people of the entire planet. I mean, they're going to have all kind of labels for it. I mean, the labels will just keep getting to be more and more scrambled sex,
yes,
anti-sex, I mean, convoluted sex.
Right.
They will have every type of sexuality that you can name,
okay,
so that there's no way to even recognize what sexuality really is.
Okay. Hold that thought right there, Mr. Fuller. We have to go to break. TalkToHim@radio.com. We go where you go. Check us out on 94.1 WGRN, Podcasts are available. Download the TalkTainmentRadio.com app to your cell or to your tablet. That's radio the way it should be heard. Stay right there. We're going to have more of your phone calls and Mr. Fuller's answer to this and more of your Gmails. All that and more coming up next on... All righty, Galen giving me the signal, so we got to do our thing. TalkTainmentRadio.com. We go where you go. And simply download the TalkTainmentRadio.com app to your cell or to your tablet. That's radio the way it should be heard. This is Mr. Bobby, the co-host on the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. And again, we are in, I believe, the 7th edition of politics, the 6th area of people activity here on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the compensatory concept. But we are specifically dealing with the term in this system of racism and white supremacy. That's what we're going to focus in on today. Now, listen up, and I'm going to be mentioning this several times. You can actually view us now on Facebook.com/Talktainment. That's Facebook.com/Talktainment. What we're trying to do is to have it so that when I was coming up, you used to say the word fix it, but we're going to fix it or have it so that you can actually view us and hear us on your computer or on your tablet or whatever. We're trying to do that. Coming up in technology, so bear with us, but this is what we are trying to do. If you'd like to get in contact with the show, you can by calling 1-877-932-9766, or you can Gmail me at the numero 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, @gmail.com. Now, I cannot guarantee that I can get to your email today. I got the caller from Michigan that wanted me to do the her email today, and I'm not sure that I can do that. But it will go into a question rotation, and as soon as they come up, I will read that. Okay, we're talking about in the system of racism and white supremacy. And before we go on, let's do this. Mr. Fuller, we're talking about your book and the word guide, which we're beginning to read out of so that people can look at the terms that or suggested terms that you have written down. Tell us how we can get the book, about the book, and the word guide.
You can get the book by going to producejustice.com. And what will come up on the screen is a brief description of the basic textbook, the revised expanded edition. However, the edition 1984, previous to that, is still a valid book. You don't have to throw that book out. You can still keep that book. That's still valid. This is just a expanded, mostly expanded. There are added things into the 2016 edition, which is the revised expanded edition of a compensatory counter-racist code.
Yeah, I'm holding it up
United
now.
Hello?
Yeah, I'm holding it up now so people can see it.
Right. So both of those books are valid, but also the word guide is just an extension. It's an addition to the basic book. Actually, it's all one book. The two editions that you see up there now, the word guide and the 2016 edition. The word guide came out in 2010.
Oh, okay.
Right. So, and that's posted on the cover of the book. But you can get both volumes, you might say, by going to producejustice.com. That's producejustice.com. And also there's some other information there at that website.
Okay. All righty. Let's see here. 1-877-932-9766 is the number that you can call to get in contact with this show. You can also view us live by going to facebook.com/Talktainment. And we're up on the screen, so you can see us there. Hopefully you can hear us. And you can also Gmail me at the numero 7, Mr. Bobby, @gmail.com. Let's go to the Gmails. Let's see here. Mr. Fuller, what suggestions can you give to help non-white people control emotions when discussing racism, white supremacy? How do you, Mr. Fuller, control your emotions and remain calm when dealing with racist and confused non-white people. One example, in my experience lately, when I mentioned that racist white supremacists are the smartest people on the planet, the non-white people I've encountered tend to disagree and get emotional instead of thinking about the truth to that statement. I also find that some white people seem to like pushing non-white people buttons to get them upset and emotional when discussing racism, ultimately resulting in nothing getting solved and the non-white person being angry. How do you deal with that? And thanks for your response.
When conversation, in other words, people interacting with each other with words, that's what conversation is supposed to be.
Yes, sir.
Or communications, rather, is supposed to be. People are communicating in words. Well, when it looks like people are getting emotional about what is being communicated, then sometimes they say we have a breakdown in communications. So if you look at that, how do communications break down? When people start talking to each other, and then next thing you know, you have what they call a quote unquote breakdown in communications. Usually people mean that everybody's getting emotional and people are just saying about how they feel about how they are communicating. So when you look at that in detail, you say, how does that come about? So what you do is, if you want to avoid that, which is something you should always avoid, because no one should ever have an argument with anyone. See, that's compensatory logic.
Yes, sir.
There should never be an argument between any two or more people, anytime, anywhere on the planet, and anytime. Arguments should not exist.
Okay.
Arguments means there's some type of hostility or some type of anxiety. You don't want any of that. So how do you go about avoiding an argument when you're trying to communicate? Well, you look at how people do communicate. For one thing, people have a tendency to start making a lot of statements. Now, the first thing you want to do in answer to the question is go quiet. In other words, don't say anything. And listen to what the other person is saying. This will be the procedure. Procedure number one. You go quiet immediately when it looks like that argument is starting. You go quiet. You can't tell the other person to be quiet because they might not agree with that, and everything escalates.
Yes.
What you do is go quiet, and then you listen to what the other person is saying, even if they're name calling or whatnot, or shouting, and being what a lot of people would call discourteous or quote unquote disrespectful or whatever. But let them do that. You go quiet. That's the first thing you do when it looks like this thing is leading to an argument.
Yes, sir.
Because arguments are supposed to be a no-no, period. That's not the way to communicate.
Yes, sir.
You can discuss, but never have an argument. There's a difference between discussion and an argument. So what you do is go quiet. Next thing, listen to what the person is saying. And then, after the person says what he or she has to say, then you ask for permission to speak.
Ask for
to the
permission?
person. Yes, ask for permission for you to speak. The person might say, no, I don't want you to say nothing to me, man.
Wow.
I mean, you've already said too much already. And just let them go ahead then. I mean, don't you say, you say, well, can I say something? Say, yeah, what do you got to say? What do you got to say? I mean, in response to what I just said to you. You say, well, you go in, the next thing you do, once you get that permission to now say something, since you have agreed to talk to the person,
yes,
you should have that permission, then you go into the question mode and you stay there. You don't have anything but questions from here on in until that argument subsides, until the person asks you a question. And if the person asks you a question, you just answer the question as truthfully and as logically as you can.
Yes, sir.
Because you're giving your answer. But when when you ask a question, don't help the person with the answer. Don't jump into the answer. That's another thing.
Okay.
That escalates the argument.
Yes, sir.
Listen to what the person is saying. And if the person is not making sense to you, think about what the person is saying in answer to your question, and then ask another question.
Okay.
So that whatever the person has to say begins to make sense.
All right.
And never get upset about the name calling. That has nothing to do with you.
Would that be number 5 then? Never get upset? Because
Well,
I have 4 listed here.
Oh.
Would that be the 5th one? If not, I'm okay with that, but I'm writing it down.
No. Well, you can list it any way you want to, because you're not supposed to. See, all you're trying to do is have what you call compensatory conversation control.
Compensatory conversation. Okay,
yeah, that's what it's called.
Okay.
Compensatory. You always control the conversation.
I got
and
it.
What's the best way to do that? By asking questions.
By asking questions.
And stay in that question lane.
Okay, yeah, that's number.
I mean, avoid making any kind of statement once the argument looks like it's starting.
Yes, I have that as number 4. Okay, let's quickly go to the phone lines. Caller, you are now on with Mr. Fuller. What is your question?
Good morning, Mr. Fuller, audience. This is Brother Muko from Baltimore, where we hold the compensatory constructive action meeting in Baltimore, St. Louis Drive, under the dome, 9 to 10 every Saturday. Anybody listening, they can come out. We're dismantling white supremacy. My question for Mr. Fuller this morning is, Mr. Fuller, can you please explain for the people in Baltimore, again, try to call every week for the people in Baltimore, can you explain how we do not have, or there is no such thing as black leaders? Only black spokesmen.
Okay. Mr. Fuller?
And can you get into detail about that real quick for the people in Baltimore so we can limit the confusion?
Okay. Let's have Mr. Fuller address that. Mr. Fuller?
Okay.
Well, for one thing, all black people on the planet in the system of white supremacy are equals, and they are equal prisoners of war. Prisoners of war are equal. There's no ranking system among prisoners of war. They're just prisoners of war, and they're in somebody else's prison. So they just interact with each other as equals. So therefore, you might say, well, you got a gang leader inside the prison. Well, that's not really a leader. That's just a person that's just talking and whatnot and telling other people what they think that they can be doing, but they don't have control over anything. The people that run the prison have control of the prison and everybody in it. So if you're a prisoner of war, a person can call themselves a lot of things. They can call themselves king. They can say that they are the emperor of the world, like a lot of black people seem to have a tendency to do, to say they're in charge of something. If you're black and you're on the planet in the system of white supremacy, you're not in charge of anything.
There you go.
Yeah, that's it. So you're not anybody's leader. You can call yourself that, but you're not
and
qualified.
Leaders aren't leaders because, and another reason why they aren't leaders is because they have to ask someone else, right?
Now, that's the question. They have to ask. Do they have to ask someone else what they can do and what they can't do? Yes. The answer to that question is yes. So then the next question is, who is the someone else? They have to answer to the white supremacists.
Yes.
That's the someone else. They have to answer to all of the people who make up the system of white supremacy. That's what supreme means. It means you don't have any say-so except what the white supremacists allow you to have, like any prisoners of war. So prisoners can argue among themselves about, who's in charge of the cell and, who's going to clean up the cell today and all like that. But when the warden comes around, he says, hey, Jason, you're the one who's going to clean the cell. End of story.
Yeah.
See what I mean?
Exactly.
And who is the warden of the prison for the non-white people of this planet? The white supremacists collectively or individually.
Okay.
But individual white supremacists are collective.
All righty. All right. Thank you, caller, for the call. Let's do this. TalkTameAtRadio.com. We go where you go, and all you have to do is download the TalkTameAtRadio.com app to your cell or to your tablet. That's radio the way it should be heard. This is Mr. Bobby, the co-host on the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. We are talking about, we are in the, let me get this straight. We are in the sixth area of people activity, which is called politics. And we have been focusing in on the term in the system of racism and white supremacy. If you would like to call in, you can by calling 1-877-932-9766, or you can Gmail me at the numero 7, Mr. Bobby, at gmail.com. And I can't promise you that your email will be read today, but it will go into rotation, and we're able to do that. In addition to that, today we are on Facebook, so let's do this. All you have to do, if you'd like to watch us, Facebook.com/Talktainment. That's Facebook.com/Talktainment, and you'll get to see what's going on here. Okay. 1-877-932-9766 or 7, the numero 7, Mr. Bobby at gmail.com. And let's go to the phone lines. Let's get the caller on. And, okay, caller, you are now on with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. What is your question? Good morning.
Good morning. Hi, peace and blessings. Peace and blessings. As I always say, I'm completely on board with Mr. Fuller, and I always want to say compensatory constructive action meeting, 2800 St. Louis Drive, will be shut off. We'll be over at Lake Clifton at the main entrance from 9 a.m. to 10 p.m. this Saturday. Compensatory constructive action meeting, 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. at Lake Clifton High School in front of the main entrance. Peace and blessings. I'm on board. Thank you very much.
Okay. Under VGQ, let's go to the Gmails. This is from Dr. Richard. He says, Mr. Fuller, if black slaves had more value than today's average black American to white America, and if this explains why the racial terrorism in America against black Americans continues to increase, especially in light of the Philandro Castile, Seattle pregnant black woman being killed, and others taken at hand of the race soldiers, what does this mean?
What does it mean for black people being killed?
Yeah.
Is that the question?
Yeah, he says,
it just means black people being killed, that's all. In the system of white supremacy, black people get killed by any white supremacist that decides to kill them.
Yeah, he wanted to know, why does it continue to increase?
It increases when the white supremacist decides it's going to be increased. They make all of the decisions. Here again, I'm saying, it's not like black people might be in captivity. If they don't do this, if they don't do that, if they do this or do that and all like that. Black people have never been out of captivity. We are in prison. The entire planet is a prison. If you have black skin, you are a prisoner of war of every white supremacist on the planet already. You were born in prison. You have to cement that idea in your mind, because that's the truth. And if you deviate from that truth for 5 minutes, you have gotten away from any kind of stable thinking at all, any type of truthful thinking. That statement that I just made is either true or false. If you have non-white skin and you are on this planet called Earth, any minute of the day, you are in all 9 areas of activity, a prisoner of war of the white supremacists, already captive. You were born in captivity, like being born in a cage, in economics, in education, in entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. You are in total captivity right this minute. If you are a person with color in your skin, his or her skin, and you are imprisoned by the white supremacists. That's what supreme means. You can't get around that word. Now, I made a series of statements right then.
Yes, you did.
The only thing you have to do now is ascertain whether or not any one of those statements that I just made is true or false. That's what you have to conclude that yourself. Just because I said it doesn't make it true.
Exactly.
But you, as an individual person of color, you decide, once I have made those statements, and I just made them, which one of those statements is false? Are all of them false? Are some of them false and some true? But I said it. So that's the first thing you want to determine before you make any kind of moves, any kind of way, or make any kind of plans any kind of way. You do that. And some people have said, oh, that stuff Fuller's talking, that ain't true. You know, ain't nobody telling me what to do. I do what I want to do. Well, more power to you. You can make that decision. But if you ask me, if you say you'll do what you want to do, then the only thing I can say to that in a compensatory way is hooray for you, and I would like to find out how you do it. And every other non-white person should be able to find out how you do what you want to do, regardless of what it is. Because what I would conclude is, if you are black and you're on this planet and you're doing what you want to do, you're probably also, most likely, if you are really breathing, making sure that what you want to do is something that the white supremacists will allow you to do. Otherwise, you're not going to be doing it.
Why not?
Because of white supremacy. The white supremacists determine whether or not a black person can go here, go there. You're not crossing any Mediterranean Sea unless they say you can cross it. You're not going across the desert sands unless they say you can cross the desert sands. They will drone you to death trying to cross them sands, or starve you to death, or have you meet some type of requirement where you got to come across some kind of quote-unquote border, and they are the ones that set all borders. Nobody non-white sets borders on this planet. White supremacists set borders. They tell people of color where you can go, where you better not go, where you can be, where you are redlined, as they call it. They gave it that term, I guess, red line. That's a color line saying, hey, you can be here and you can be there. You can buy a house here. You can buy a house there. You can build a house here. You can pitch a tent there. But if you don't get my permission, I will move you from there. I'll ask you first, but I'm not going to ask you the second time unless I choose to.
Yes.
Because I got the muscle to do anything that I want to with any of you people of color anywhere on this planet at any time. And don't you ever forget it. And if you forget it, I can prove it to you in about 5 minutes that I can make you do anything that I want you to do, and that includes your grandmother too.
Wow. This is what we're talking about when we mention, as Mr. Fuller just did, we're talking about in the system of racism and white supremacy, which includes this show, which includes this program. They allow it to happen, to my understanding. Would that be a correct assumption, Mr. Fuller?
The white supremacists can right this minute push a button and shut me down, period. And if they wish to, get on the phone and tell me what I am going to do in the next 5 minutes, and maybe for the rest of my entire existence, and what I can't do.
All righty.
And then they can ask me a question if they choose to play with me in a business-like way, and that is simply to say, what are you going to do about it, and do you know anybody that can overrule me?
Okay. When you hear the music, you know what that means. Hey, thanks for listening. Thanks for hearing. TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio. We'll see you next hour.
With Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio.
The most important question in all racial matters is why. One should always ask it.
Radio, the way it should be heard.
You've got the power. The world's greatest radio. Talktainmentradio.com. Talktainment Radio, worldwide sound. Talktainmentradio.com. We give you a reason to come. The world's greatest radio. We give you a reason to stay. Radio, the way it should be heard. You got the power.
The views and opinions expressed are those of the host and guest and not necessarily those of TalkTainmentRadio.com, the management, the staff, or K&E World Network, LLC.
Live call-in talk show. Dial 1-877-932-9766 and join the conversation here on TalkTainmentRadio.com.
This is the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio. Radio, the way it should be heard. And now, Mr. Neely Fuller.
If you do not understand white supremacy, which is racism, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. Only confuse you. Only confuse you.
Alrighty. Welcome to the second hour of the Compensatory Concept on TalkTainmentRadio.com. We go where you go on the world's greatest radio. You are now in touch with the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., and this is radio the way it should be heard. And speaking about that, for those that are just now tuning in, you can now go to Facebook.com/Talktainment to view us live. That's Facebook.com/Talktainment, and you can view the program live. That's today. How about that? For those of you who'd like to call in, you can do so by calling 1-877-932-9766, or you can Gmail me at the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby at gmail.com. And I can't promise you that your question will be read today, but it will go into rotation, and they give it to me, and then I will read it to you, or read it for everybody else. Okay. We are discussing the sixth area of people activity again. I believe this is week number 7, politics. And in particular, we have been focusing in on the term in the system of racism and white supremacy. Everything that you do is in this system of racism and white supremacy, and we thought we would hone in on that. We talked about, Mr. Fuller talked about that in the first hour. The system, and that is on page 386 of the Word Guide, which he spoke about that. He talked about sexual politics, sexual play, and we're going to get into refinement, which will be on page 330 at some point during this conversation. So again, if you'd like to call in, you may do so by calling 1-877-932-9766, or you can Gmail me at the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, B-O-B-B-Y, at gmail.com. Okay, Mr. Fuller, let's go to a Gmail, and it says here, this is from Dr. Sonny. He says, Mr. Fuller, what lessons should black people learn from the events surrounding the Jewish Holocaust?
Oh, that you can be put into an oven, I mean, by people who have power to do so. You can be harmed. What is called the Jewish Holocaust is just a way of people harming people, that's all, who have power over you. It just depends on who the people are and where they are and where they get their power and how they got it. And power is power. And so people, even two people on the planet, one might get the power to mistreat and dominate the other. So this happens all the time. So these lessons are expressed every day somewhere on the planet. Males over females and whatnot. I mean, lots of females are being abused right this minute by males who have taken the power to do so. I mean, that's just a male-female thing. Mm-hmm. I mean, so until the female can gain some power on her own or get some other males to help her to gain the power over the males who are mistreating her, then that will continue as long as the person who is exerting that type of power and that type of mistreatment chooses to do so. So it's just a method of expressing power, one person over another, and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
And so you can learn about that. It's all kinds of examples all down through history. But the greatest expression of power that the world has ever experienced, of unlawful power, of incorrect power, is the system of white supremacy.
Okay.
The domination and mistreatment by those white people, not all white people, but those white people who have chosen to set up a system of racism over the people who they classify as being non-white.
Yes, sir.
And dominate and mistreat those people in all 9 areas of activity.
Okay.
Nothing in the history of the world has ever been greater than that in the mistreatment of people.
Okay. All right, Dr. Sonny, we hope that answered your question. Let's go to the phone lines. If we are ready, okay, you are now on with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. What is your question?
Hello?
Yes, you're on.
Mr. Neely Fuller, have you heard about the black tourist that was killed in Greece?
Heard about the
black tourist that was killed in Greece.
He said the black tourist that was killed in the concept of Greece.
The black people that
no,
were...
the tourist.
The tourist?
That was visiting the, I want to say country, but I'm trying to use the correct compensatory term, concept of Greece.
Oh, the black tourist in Greece.
Yes.
The Greece concept. No, I haven't heard anything about black tourists. What about them?
Nah, he was killed outside of a bar. Supposedly he had white friends, but the white friends didn't help him, and he was beaten to death outside a bar.
By who?
By other white people.
Not the police, just the other white people.
Yes, inside the bar.
Uh-huh.
No, I haven't heard anything about it, but these incidents are what the code says about that. That's an ongoing thing. Black people are being mistreated 24/7 all over the planet. So you can pick out millions of incidents because all of it conglomerately, if you want to use that word, collectively throughout the world, is mistreatment. We are all prisoners of war. You can expect prisoners of war to be beaten at any time. I mean, we're slaves. Slavery never ended. What is slavery? What is slavery? Slavery is people mistreating other people, and the people who are being mistreated do not know what to do about it. That is slavery. That's a simple and straightforward and true definition of slavery. The non-white people of this planet are slaves to the white supremacists.
Okay. Did you have another point, caller?
No, I just wanted to ask about that.
Okay. All right. No, I wasn't aware either. When did this happen?
A couple of days ago.
Okay. And his white friends didn't defend him or anything?
Nope.
They just
they said he was in a bar and he got into an altercation. I don't know what happened, but they got outside. And I guess he got jumped. They said it was at least like 10 people. On just him.
Wow. Okay. Okay. Hey,
this was on the news and everything.
Okay, I missed it myself. Okay, and I do have a friend and his wife and family over there right now. I was pretty interested in what you had to say. Thank you for your calling for your information. So this type of behavior is not a surprise to you, Mr. Fuller?
No, it goes with the territory, and every black person on the planet should expect to be mistreated at any time directly. I mean, you're being mistreated all the time just by being in the system of racism because you're a prisoner of war, and you shouldn't be a prisoner of war because you didn't do anything to cause you to be a prisoner. The white supremacists have decided that if you're a person of color, you should come under a system called the system of white supremacy. And what is the system of white supremacy? It means a white person has a blank check when it comes to dominating and mistreating any person that has color in his or her skin. And that's a worldwide system, 24/7. And every now and then you have what they call a racial incident, but the code says, racial incident. I mean, the whole system is a racial incident because you are subject to a prison system that never should have existed in the first place. We should have a system of justice, which means what? Guaranteeing that no person is mistreated and guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help. That's the compensatory definition for justice.
Okay.
Justice does not exist anywhere on the planet. Why? Because you can't have justice and a system of white supremacy on the same planet at the same time.
At the same time,
That is totally impossible.
Okay, let's go to the phone lines. Are we ready to take the call? Let's see here. I'm looking over here. Are we ready? Okay, caller, you're now on with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. Go ahead with your question. Go ahead.
Hello, are you speaking with me?
Yes, I am speaking with you, caller. Go ahead.
Yes, I have a question from Mr. Fuller.
Yes.
I was wondering, is it ever acceptable to use the term bastard babies when referring to unwed mothers with children?
Bastard babies?
Yes. Is it ever acceptable to use that term when referring to the children of unwed mothers?
Okay. Mr. Fuller?
It's acceptable to use any term if you choose to use the term and define it according to your definition. That's true. I mean, that's the word guide, compensatory word guide process. That victims of racism can take any word, like I've taken the N word and given it my own definition that works for me. I mean, other people can accept it if they want to or not. All right, but I have, since the word apparently doesn't go anywhere, it's still around, so I nailed it down in a way that how can I use this word and use it in a way that will work for me? Why? Because any word that you use should be a word that works for you. Works for you in doing what? In producing a product. What product? Called justice and correctness. Put you in balance with people and with creatures and things. Any word. Word is nothing but a tool. Any word. The word bastard, the N word, any word that you use is nothing but a tool to accomplish something. So what you should be trying to do is accomplish justice, which is something that doesn't exist, and you have to have a definition even for the word justice so you know what it's like when you get it or when you don't have it. And you do the same thing with the word bastard. Can the word work for you? If you give it the definition that will work for you. If it won't give you the definition that will work for you and benefit you or help to produce justice, then don't use the word. But any word can have any definition. See, you can take any word, really, if you stop and think about it. I don't care what kind of word it is, and give it any kind of definition you want to. Now, you say, no, you can't do that. People have told me that about what I've done with the word guide. They say, Fuller, you just can't make up words or change the definitions of words. I said, now, the first thing is I'm considering what you just said, that I can't do it. And I say the evidence shows what? I have done it. They say, yeah, but Fuller, suppose don't nobody pay no attention to your new definitions. I say, well, now, that's another story. But saying that I can't do it when I've already done it, that's simply not true. And so it's something about the magic of words I have discovered. This is why I did it. When you start using words a certain way, the words take on the meaning that you are using. That's just the way it works. That's the way anybody gets any word to work. People make up words all the time. Or people give new definitions to old words. The white supremacists definitely do it. They do it, I mean, in a snap.
Yes, yes.
And you can do the same thing. Why? Because there's no law that's functional, and I underline functional now, that says you can't do it. Even if a person says you're not supposed to do it, you can still do it. Just because they said you're not supposed to do it doesn't say you can't do it.
Right.
So you just simply do it and start saying it.
Mm-hmm. All righty. Hey, caller, thank you for your call. Very, very, very much. Thank you. TalkTameRadio.com is a 24/7 no-charge worldwide broadcasting facility with hosts delivering on various topics such as news, lifestyle, sports, law, health, wellness, religion, and, of course, politics, which we are on now. Now, here are several that I'd like to share with you. Senior Agenda would be one. Wiggins World would be another. And This is Libby. This is another show. Now, all you have to do is go to the TalkTainment.com homepage, click on programs for the scheduled times, and you'll be right in Fat City. All this is exclusive from TalkTainmentRadio.com. That's radio the way it should be heard. Hi, I'm Mr. Bobby, the co-host on The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., who is live on the line from Washington, D.C. Today, you can view us if you go to Facebook.com/Talktainment. We're on. That's right. Go to Facebook.com/Talktainment, and we are on. Now, if you'd like to call us, you can by calling 1-877-932-9766, or you can Gmail me at the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, at gmail.com, and we'll get it in rotation. Let's go to the phone lines. Okay, caller, you are now on with Mr. Fuller. What is your question for Mr. Fuller?
Good morning. First, I want to say that the Facebook, we can't hear you, hear nobody on a call, like Neely Fuller or anybody that calls.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
No problem. Secondly, Mr. Neely Fuller, good morning. This is Joe from Harlem, by the way. My question is about individual accountability when it comes to non-white people, particularly black people. And that's really my question. Like, what is that? Does he have a definition for that or understanding of that, individual accountability?
Individual accountability?
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Fuller?
No, but a person can use that term if they give a definition to it and get other people to accept it. Individual accountability, I don't have the definition for it because I don't need for it. In fact, I have told people that I don't even like the term holding people accountable.
Yeah.
I just say people either do what they're supposed to do or they don't. And that term that someone invented, well, we have to hold our elected officials accountable, or we have to hold black people accountable. And I've asked the question, what do you mean hold them? Hold them in your arms? What are you talking about? You know, I've never had anybody explain in detail what you actually do.
Okay.
You hear this term all the time, holding accountable. Well, after all, I mean, we have to get real serious, and we have to hold these people accountable. We have to hold them accountable, hold them accountable, hold them accountable, over and over again, like a broken record. And I have asked people, what do you mean holding accountable? By doing what? See, everything is about doing something. So if you're going to hold somebody, do you hold them by the toe, or what are you talking about?
Yeah.
You know, holding accountable. So I haven't gotten an answer to that question myself. Holding accountable. What does that mean? Holding. But the compensatory code says, I don't expect any black person to do anything except cooperate with the white supremacists like I do every day. And I can't get mad at them because they're cooperating with the white supremacists when I'm cooperating with the white supremacists each and every day, every minute. I'm a prisoner of war. So we are all cooperating, according to the evidence,
or else,
if you're a person of color.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't get mad, using the Shawshank Redemption movie example and whatnot. Red is not supposed to get mad at his fellow prisoners because they did something that the warden said that they got to do, when Red himself is doing everything that the warden says he's got to do. So how are you going to go around and criticize another black person for not doing what you think that they ought to be doing when you are cooperating yourself? I've never understood that.
Yes, sir.
Or rather, I do understand it, and that is we don't understand white supremacy. As individuals, many individual black people try to put themselves outside of the prison and say, now, you guys in prison should be doing this, that, and the other. When you're in the prison yourself, wearing the prison uniform with a number and cooperating with the system every day.
Every day.
Yes, the black person who says, oh, I don't cooperate with the white supremacists. Well, do you rent? Do you buy things? Do you spend money? If you're not going to cooperate with the system, then one of the first things you do to prove that is you declare that you don't need money to get things. And you just start going around picking up stuff. And people ask you to pay. You say, hey, I ain't cooperating with the system. The system says I got to pay money. I ain't paying money for nothing. Now, you do what you want to do because I got the muscle to back up what I'm saying. Now, I haven't seen black people do that. You and if I see somebody do it, I want to know how they pull that off.
Yeah. Okay. Good point, Mr. Fuller. Hey, listen, if you want to view us, you can by going to facebook.com/talktainment. We are on, working out whatever we have to work out, but we are on. That is at facebook.com/talktainment. Let's get into this, Mr. Fuller. On page 239 of the compensatory counter-racist code guide, I'm holding it up on so that people can see it on the screen. We're on page 239. At the bottom, you said this, or a question was asked, if you were to list the major accomplishments of racist man and racist woman, what would they be? What is your response to that?
That's page 239 of the basic book?
Yes, sir. Of the revised expanded edition.
Yes. If you were to list the major accomplishments of racist man and racist woman, what would they be? Answer. Number one, accomplish more things in all areas of activity in the greatest and most effective manner than all of the non-white people of the known universe combined. Now, when you say these kind of things, you should stop and really think, because I'm making flat statements here on page 239 of the basic textbook. The major accomplishments of racist women, racist men, collectively, meaning the white supremacists, they have accomplished more things in all areas of activity in the greatest and most effective manner than all of the non-white people of the known universe combined. Now, does the evidence show that they have? Yes. Because one thing, what is the greatest accomplishment that a person can have? And that is to dominate other people. That's a great accomplishment. And they set out to dominate all of the people, black, brown, red, and yellow, of the entire planet. They are not in the process of doing that. They have done that. So that means they have, anytime I tell everybody what to do, and they can't make me do anything, that's a huge accomplishment.
Yes, that's a huge accomplishment.
That's number one. Number two, they classified the people of the known universe as white or non-white and caused and promoted the mistreatment of all of the people classified as non-white. They did that. That's a huge accomplishment.
Yes.
Nobody's ever been able to pull off anything that big.
But they did.
All right?
What's number three?
Number three, caused and are promoted self-hate among the non-white people of the known universe.
Yes.
All over the planet right now as we speak. In every city. Black people got double locks on every door and whatnot in the northwestern hemisphere and trying to get another one. And out in the street, you walk down the street, You're looking over your shoulder. You're afraid to come too close to somebody. You're afraid of what you say to somebody if that someone is non-white. If you pass, particularly among people classified as black, you don't know how to talk to anyone, or they don't know how to talk to you without it look like you can feel the tension. Sometimes you get here in 2017, in the Northwestern Hemisphere particularly, 20, 30 black people suddenly appearing in the same place, in the same crowd. You can almost feel the tension. You think that something ugly is going to happen, and most likely something will.
That's true.
This is the truth. This is the truth. And anxiety everywhere. You feel uptight everywhere.
Yes, this is true.
Yes, you see black people coming down the streets. You don't know how you're going to react or how they're going to react to you, other than something ugly it might happen. See, so the white supremacists did what? They produced all of that.
They produced it. What's number 4?
They are the ones who produced that. I mean, that's not a natural thing. Babies don't do that.
That's true. Babies don't. Right.
Yeah, little babies, little children, they walk around this wide-eyed and whatnot. I mean, but they pick up the vibes pretty quick.
Yes.
And by the time they're around 10 years old, it starts showing right out there on the playground. I mean, all that hostility. Because the white supremacists breed that type of thing.
And what's number 4, Mr. Fuller?
Number 4, cause the greatest number of people to enjoy, glorify, and participate in the most destructive conflict and destructive conduct among and between people, creatures, and things of the known universe. And number 5, cause white supremacy to be the most powerful religion and the most powerful political system ever produced among the people of the known universe. There's no so-called political party, Republican, Democrat, Independent, whatever you want to call it. There's no politics greater than the system of white supremacy. And there's no religion, Christianity, Judaism, Islam, Confucianism, Hinduism, you name it, including a lot of the unnamed religions and a lot of the tribal religions by the hundreds. None of them have proven to be more powerful than the religion of white supremacy, which means mistreating people based on color.
Based on color, yes. Okay, let's, do we have time to take the call or do it after the break? Okay, because we're about 2 minutes from the break. Caller, I'm going to ask you to hold on because I don't want you to be asking your questions and we have to go to commercial. So hang on, I'm going to get to you as soon as we do our break here. Mr. Fuller, before we go to break, one of the people wrote in that listens to you in Washington, D.C. He says, Mr. Bobby, the link below, someone is taking the material of Mr. Fuller and Mr. Carl Nelson in a show they recently did. I just wanted to bring it to your attention and to Mr. Fuller's attention. Well, I don't listen to Mr. Carl Nelson's show here in Columbus, but I know that you go on Carl Nelson's show, and apparently somebody is, according to this person, is doing something, and he wanted me to make you aware that someone is doing something with the show that you do in Washington, D.C. And when do you go on that show, Mr. Fuller?
Oh, whenever they invite me. I go on what you call the regular radio program.
Okay.
I don't go on any other internet programs.
It's terrestrial radio. Okay.
Right.
That's 1490 a.m. in Washington, D.C. Is that what that is?
That's 1450.
1450. Okay. TalkTameRadio.com. We go where you go. Check us out on 94.1 WGRN. Podcasts are available. Download the TalkTameRadio.com app to your cell or to your tablet. That's radio the way it should be heard. Stay right there. I got some callers on the line and more Gmails. You go where you go. Download the TalkTameRadio.com app to your cell or to your tablet. That's radio the way it should be heard. This is Mr. Bobby, the co-host on the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., heard exclusively on TalkTameRadio.com. Now, if you would like to get in contact with the show, you can do so by calling 1-877-932-9766, or you can also Gmail me at the numero 7 MrBobby@gmail.com. And today, you can view us live on Facebook. Go to Facebook.com/Talktainment, and you'll get to see yours truly. That's Facebook.com/Talktainment, and you'll get to see yours truly. Our subject today has been in the system of racism, white supremacy in regards to the sixth area of people activity, politics. Mr. Fuller has talked about the system, the word system, which is also found in the word guide, sexual politics, which is also found in the word guide, sexual play. We're going to go to refinement, but first we are going to go to the phone call. So let's get the caller up. Okay, caller, you are now on with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. What is your question for Mr. Fuller?
I'd like to make a comment, my good
Okay,
brother.
wait a minute. Let me get the clock set. Okay, ready, set, go. There you go.
Okay. It's been reported that there was over 100 people shot over the weekend in Chicago. That is nothing but government propaganda. Mr. Hitler said the great masses of the people will more easily fall victim to a great lie than to a small lie. So they spew this propaganda over and over. And by them controlling everything, particularly media, government, and law enforcement, it's hard to counter this propaganda. Now, I'm living here in Chicago, the most racist city on earth. They said there was over 100 people shot. I get the newspaper over the weekend. I can only document 4 or 5 shootings that they said who was shot, where was the shooting. Then they end the article say, overall, there was over 100 shootings in Chicago. But they don't document them. They don't tell you where the shooting happened, who was shot, did you see a car, what they looking for. So how do you solve the crime? More than 80% of the murders in Chicago go unsolved. So if over 100 people is shot and you're not documenting it and putting it in the paper, how do you get help from your citizenry? Now, the brother was talking about the black tourists killed in Greece. Mr. Fuller is right. White supremacy worldwide. Now, since they're going to exterminate us, they are creating an atmosphere all over the world, not just here, for our extermination to be accepted. So they killed Malcolm X's grandson in Mexico. He was down there visiting. So when this extermination happens to us, and by them killing us all over the world, people are going to be immune to it. They're going to say, oh, yeah, them black people deserve it. Man, they wasn't doing nothing no way. Yeah, they probably had their boy assassinated. This is what they do. Now, listen, the process of understanding or perceiving a common evil has put many people into a situation of the utmost danger.
All right, bro.
That is exactly where we are. We do not see or perceive the common evil. Open your eyes.
Thank you, my brother.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. Okay, Mr. Fuller, you want to make a comment on that before we move on?
No, that comes under VGQ, and whatever any of the callers say, whatever views they express should be considered.
Okay.
Because we're all supposed to be searching for the truth about anything.
Okay.
That's the main thing. If you don't have the truth about things, you can't do anything about anything.
Yes, sir.
If you don't have the truth about, if you're getting ready to make a recipe, to cook some food, if you don't have the truth in that recipe about what the outcome is going to be in the recipe that you have, then you're going to have something that you didn't intend to have.
Yes, sir.
You can't solve a problem through any type of false information. You can't. That just doesn't work.
Yes, sir.
That's compensatory logic.
Okay. Let's do this, Gayla. I'm going to read I'm going to read this first, and then we'll go ahead on. TalkTainmentRadio.com. We go where you go. You can simply download the TalkTainmentRadio.com app to your cell or to your tablet. That's radio the way it should be heard. This is Mr. Bobby, me, and we're live on the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., and our topic has been in the system of racism, white supremacy, in particular in the area of politics. And if you'd like to call in, you may do so by calling 1-877-932-9227. 9766, or you can Gmail me at 7mrbobby@gmail.com, or now you can go to facebook.com/Talktainment, and we're on. Okay. Yeah, I was getting ready to do that. Yeah. Mr. Fuller, one more time very quickly about your book.
You can get the book by going to producejustice.com. Producejustice.com. And what will come up on the screen is a brief description of a basic textbook and an additional book, because there should be just one book, but I couldn't get all that information in between just two covers. I had to have four. So it's an edition called a word guide, a compensatory counter-racist word guide.
Yeah, I'm sure
how the individual person can, if he or she chooses to do so, use words in such a manner that the words work for you, not against you.
Yes.
And the basic textbook and the word guide are addressed to individual persons, individuals, not so-called groups and all like that. You can't organize. The concept is that you can't organize against white supremacy if you're a prisoner of war of the system of white supremacy. There's no way to organize inside the prison. You have to unify. And you unify with what? You unify with a concept and a series of do's and don'ts that address the individual persons. So everything in the book is addressed to the individual person. You can accept and reject whatever's in there. Nobody's your boss when it comes to the compensatory counter-racist concept. You boss yourself. And
right.
you do what works, and you don't do what doesn't work, even if it's in the book. And you happen to be in a place under circumstances where there's a suggestion in the book, and you look at it and you say, well, that might work somewhere else under some other circumstance, but that won't work for me right now at this minute. So therefore, you use logic. Always follow logic. And say, I can't use that portion of it. I can use this portion over here on this page, but this portion of the code, I can't use it. At least I can't use it right now, because I'm not under those kind of circumstances.
Yes. Okay.
It's all democratic. Doesn't get any better than that.
Okay. Now, before we get to refinement, and I want to tell you that it's in the revised expanded edition. You can go to page 240, and you can also go to the word guide on page 330. But before we go there and have Mr. Fuller explain that, we're going to take a phone call. Caller, you are now on with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. What is your question?
Yes, under 9 areas of activity, I have two questions.
All right, number one.
Under 9 areas of activity, what does the national media fall under? Entertainment?
Sign language?
What do you say, sign language?
What did you say, Mr. Fuller? We didn't hear that. He said.
No, I'm asking, what did he say?
No, he said, what does the media fall under in the 9 areas of people activity? What would they fall under?
The media?
Yes.
Oh, the media, then it comes to a definition. What is the media? The media is any form of communications.
Okay.
We all the media. Yeah, that's a cliche term that people started using some time ago, and they say, well, the media this and the media that, you can't trust the media. Now it comes down to a question, what is the media?
Okay.
So the compensatory definition of media is it's any form of communication. Anytime you're talking to a person, we're the media right now. So which media are you talking about? So you're talking about any person that happens to be talking to another person or writing to another person.
Okay, but he asked if that being true, if that is being true, what area in the 9 areas that you have described would that fall under?
All of it.
Okay.
I mean, because it's nothing but communicate. What is the media?
Okay, I got you.
One person communicating with another.
Okay.
And that's in economics, that, economic media. You communicate with people when you put your money on the counter. That's communication. You're sending a message. I'm paying you for something that I'm buying. If you want to use money, in economics.
Yes.
Education. That's media. You go into a school. What are they doing? They're using words. A school is mostly words. You walk in, you see some desks, you see some chairs, you see some people. And the people are doing what? They are tossing words back and forth. Somebody goes to a board or to a screen or to a chart on a wall, and it's words there or pictures there. And what are those words and pictures for? They are communicating.
Okay.
And so that's the media.
Okay. What was your second?
All areas.
Okay.
Okay. What I was trying to get to was that in all of it, like you said, and he was just talking about, he was saying that, we were talking about fake news, and I was talking about, and I was coming to the G20 summit that just passed, and how the news media did the protesters. There was 15 to 20,000 protesters, and they were protesting the G20 summit, but the media never said what actually they were protesting. And I surmise that they were protesting, and I posit that they are protesting, the New World Order or white supremacy, one of its plans and so forth. And so what is this Dr. Neely Fuller? I'll think about that. I'll take my answer off there.
Okay, thank you very much for your call. Mr. Fuller?
Well, I don't know, because people are protesting all types of things all over the world. So the compensatory counter-racist procedure is always when you see someone doing something, whatever it is that someone is doing, you have to ask the person who is doing whatever he or she is doing, what are you doing and why? Those two questions. What do you intend to achieve by what you are doing?
Okay.
What is it you are trying to do? All right? Just a series of questions. But all of those questions have to be directed to each and every person, really, who's participating in a so-called, quote-unquote, demonstration.
Okay. All righty. All right, now, we want to get to this, in particular, refinement, or the refinement stage. You said that on page 240 of the compensatory counter-racist code, which I'm holding up to the camera so people can see the revised expanded edition. On page 240, you said that during the refinement stage of white supremacy, what is the most difficult thing for great numbers of white people to do? First of all, what do you mean by refinement stage? And then the answer to that question, what is the most difficult thing for great numbers of white people to do, Mr. Fuller?
Well, the system of white supremacy goes through 4 stages. Establishment, that's getting it started. Maintenance, that's keeping it going. Expansion, that's taking in more and more people. And there are more people now on the planet than there were, say, 500 years ago or 1,000 years ago. So you're expanding the system of racism when more and more non-white people are born. Mm-hmm. And then the last stage, the 4th stage, is the refinement stage. After you get it all established and get it maintained,
yes,
and get it expanded, you want to refine it.
Mm-hmm.
You want to put the finishing touches on it, paint it up and all like that, make it look pretty. And that's what the refinement stage of white supremacy is, so that it doesn't even look like it's white supremacy.
Yes.
It looks like it's what you call normal conditions for people of the planet, when it isn't. So the most difficult thing for the victims of white supremacy to do is to understand the refinement stage. During the refinement stage of white supremacy, the stage in which the most deception is practiced.
All right. Yes, sir. Get to it.
That's what it is. It's the stage in which they say, we are doing this and we are doing that. We believe in justice. We believe in peace. We believe in all these nice things. when they are doing just the opposite.
Yes.
But it looks like on the surface that they are actually doing what they say that they are doing. We're establishing peace and justice and all like that when they're doing just the opposite.
In every activity. Huh?
In every one of the areas of activity. And it's the most difficult thing for great numbers of white people to do is to say exactly what they think about non-white people directly to non-white people in regards to every area of activity.
Yes.
Including economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war.
Right. Okay, now, on page 330 of the Compensatory Counter-Racist Codified Word Guide, I'm holding it up so that people can see that, this book right here. On page 330, under Refined Racism, White Supremacy, could you just go over a portion of that that you suggested or wrote, giving compensatory definitions to this?
And that's on the page 330 of the basic book?
No, that's under the
Word Guide.
Yeah, the Word Guide, yes. Under Refined Racism. And then you have White Supremacy in parentheses.
Oh, page 330, right.
Yes, sir.
Refined racism. Oh, yes. Refined racism, for emphasis, white supremacy, use this term to apply to the ultimate and most sophisticated form of white supremacy and to those forms of white supremacy that usually have many of the following or similar characteristics or results.
Okay.
First one is non-white persons being deceived.
There it is.
Which means fooled by the white supremacists in a manner that does not appear to be deceit.
There it is.
Meaning the white supremacists know how.
Yes.
They have refined the system of fooling black people, for instance, in a manner that does not appear to be deceit. They are experts at doing that. I mean, you're being fooled, but you think that you're not being fooled. Mm-hmm. You'll argue with other black people that you're not being fooled. Nobody put nothing over on me. I know what's happening. Mm-hmm. I've been around. I traveled this, and I've traveled there, and I've talked to this person and that person. They ain't fooling me when they're fooling you all the time, even when you think you're not being fooled. You have to watch that. The refined system of racism, they are so good at what they do that they can do that, and they do it. Non-white persons, another one is non-white persons denying to themselves and others that white supremacy exists. I'm going to say that again. Non-white persons denying to themselves and to others that white supremacy exists. And denying to that white supremacy is a major problem. Denying to everybody, that, hey, there is such a thing as racism, but it ain't no big problem. I know how to get around it. I know what to do about it. I can handle it.
Yes.
Yes. I mean, it ain't nothing to it. I mean, that's a side issue.
Yes.
I mean, all I need is, the wheel and deal. I mean, I know how to get by. In other words, but hey, now you're fooling yourself, and the white supremacists know it. And they glory in that.
Yeah, wait a minute, Mr. Fuller, before you go on, I'm supposed to tell you or ask the people that if you want to look at what we're doing, go to facebook.com/talktainment, and we're on there, okay? That's facebook.com/talktainment, and we're there. Okay, that's satisfying. Go ahead, Mr. Fuller, do it.
All right. Another feature of the refined stage of white supremacy is it has the result of non-white persons speaking and are acting as if the system of white supremacy is the best way of conducting the affairs of the people of the known universe. I mean, sometimes we're not even aware that this is what we're saying. But we're saying, hey, man, the best thing to do is you go about doing this and that and this particular way and all like that, when all you're doing is just solidifying and making higher the walls of the prison that you're behind. But you're not aware of this. But it goes to show you just how skillful the white supremacists are at having a black person do this type of thing. In other words, making the walls that they're in or behind higher. So, and they're saying that they're actually working for their benefit.
Yeah,
when you make the prisoner really add to with glee and with joy. Add to the walls that makes him a greater prisoner than he already is.
This is refined racism, Mr.
That's
Fuller is talking about. Go ahead, Mr. Fuller. Go ahead. Continue.
Another feature of refined racism is what? Non-white persons speaking and are acting as if the destructive things that happen every day as a result of the system of white supremacy are not only so-called normal and are acceptable, but often desirable. And that's just a kind of a repeat of what I said before.
Exactly.
And also, the next one, non-white persons preferring to waste time showing off and insulting, fighting, and killing each other rather than make a serious and sustained effort to rid the known universe of white supremacy and other forms of injustice.
That is so true.
The white supremacists, have refined their system in such a way that just about any move that a black person makes is going to be harmful to himself or herself.
Destructive.
Or the other non-white people. And all right. And have us glorifying in doing it.
Yeah.
When we're being harmful. Even when we're entertaining ourselves, we harm each other. We do that in any field. Name the field. Sexual activity. Doing harm. When we call ourselves getting, quote, unquote, educated. I'm talking about the 9 areas of activity.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Doing harm. Thinking that we are doing something that is improving us and whatnot. And when you start talking about sex, they're really doing a job.
Yeah, when they talk about sex.
They have just about completed the job of black people. We are sexually messed up like ants and mosquitoes wouldn't believe.
Toxic sexual activity. Wow.
Yes, right.
What about that last one there?
And the last one is non-white persons being serious about matters that are silly and being silly about matters that are serious.
Woo! Yes. Absolutely.
And being generally confused about the best and correct way to do or say or not do or say anything in regards to all of the 9 areas of activity.
Which are economics,
education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war, counter-war. Not being serious about things that are serious. Being serious about things that are silly and serious about things that are serious.
I'm telling you. In the remaining moments that we have with the show, if you don't do anything, you need to go to page 330 and 331 and list and read what Mr. Fuller has mentioned about refined racism, especially on 331. We didn't get a chance to do that. But anyway, when you hear the music, you know that it's time to go. So we thank you for calling in. We thank you for Gmails. And we thank you for looking at us, reviewing us on Facebook.com/Talktainment. So with that, Mr. Fuller will say thank you. To the callers, we say thank you. And this is Talktainment Radio, the world's greatest radio, the way radio should be heard. And we'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening to The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalktainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio.
The most important question in all racial matters is why. One should always ask it.
Radio, the way it should be heard.
You got the power. The world's greatest radio. TalktainmentRadio.com.